Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be all about back pain. Now, why I was particularly inspired to make this video is I keep seeing this take pop up on social media. It's something you used to hear a lot a couple of years back, but then it's sort of resurfaced and is starting to do the rounds again. And it's this whole idea that you shouldn't stretch a sore or injured or tight back. You need to strengthen it, and that's the solution to the problem every single time. Now, before we get into the meat of this video, a few disclaimers. I'm not a physio or a qualified rehab professional. Don't come and ask me for advice if you have back pain. I'm not going to help rehab you. Go to a professional if you genuinely need help. But I do think I'm in a unique position where I'm relatively unbiased. Obviously, I'm not completely unbiased because back pain is something that I've dealt with at various times in my life. So obviously I've got this idea of what helped me and, you know, things that have worked for a bunch of my clients, but I'm definitely less biased than someone who's just trying to sell everyone this one solution to their back pain and fill my rehab client books. Honestly, the whole rehab space is pretty crappy when it comes to marketing tactics, preying on fears. It's just so easy to make money out of people who are scared and in pain. And back pain just is one of those pains that people are pretty uniquely scared of. So anyway, hopefully after today's video, it's something that you'll find less scary and you'll have better solutions for when you do run into such issues, because we can sort of see it in the research. At some point, everyone is going to face back pain. It doesn't matter if you're a sedentary person. It doesn't matter if you're an active person. It doesn't matter if you've got a really strong deadlift. The likelihood is that you will experience back pain at some point, but don't get too depressed because we've got some good news coming throughout this video. So the same way that we get these dramatic overcorrections in fitness culture, we often see the same thing in rehab culture. So I would say up until just before I really started getting really active working in the fitness industry, people were very scared of strength training, especially as it related to back pain. Often it was the blame for back pain. It's like, oh, your back hurts? Of course, it's because you do those nasty deadlifts. So if you want to get out of back pain, never deadlift again, never load your back, never bend your back under load. Make sure you learn to lift with your legs. And stretching is probably going to fix your back pain because all that deadlifting and heavy lifting you've been doing, it's made the back really tight. So stretching it is going to undo that tightness and then boom, back pain solved. Simple as that, right? And then a couple of years after I started working as a personal trainer, I would say around 2016 was the peak of the just get stronger and that'll get you out of pain period. But at this point, it wasn't really this narrative of, oh, you've got a sore back, we need to make your back stronger. It was a lot of narratives like, oh, your back's working overtime because your glutes are weak. So we need to do these little banded clamshells, that'll strengthen your glutes, and then the glutes will work more when you're deadlifting, and then your back will never hurt again. And then somewhere along the way, that turned into, oh, you've got a sore back, it's because you have a weak back, so if you just get it stronger, that's actually the cure to your back pain. In reality, all these narratives, causes, and solutions are incredibly short-sighted because it didn't really do anything for anyone's back pain, or it worked for some people, it didn't work for a whole group of other people, had mixed results for some others. And the reality is, if back pain was as simple as just one variable, we wouldn't experience back pain because we would have solved it. Or as soon as someone had an incident of back pain, boom, it's like, all right, we'll just stretch it, or all right, just strengthen this muscle, and everyone would be out of pain. But anyone with skin in the game would know that that's just not the way that it works, because again, we see all sorts of people doing all kinds of things to their spine, both active and sedentary people, all experiencing varying degrees of back pain for varying periods of their life. Now, before we talk about any more interventions, I'd like to talk about what if we don't intervene with back pain? Like, just do nothing, keep living your life as best as possible, try to just sort of block it out and ignore it. And, you know, what happens to our back pain then, according to the research? And a lot of people sort of innately understand this, that the body has these magical healing properties. Sorry, I shouldn't say magical healing properties, but the body is completely capable of healing itself. And in the research, when there's no intervention and you just sort of let this natural healing process occur, it's referred to as natural history. So they've studied the natural history for a whole heap of conditions, and that's often in research what interventions are tested against. So how does this, sometimes interventions are tested against each other, but in really well conducted experiments, there'll be this control group of no intervention. Let's just see how long they take to get better. Because this is where a lot of rehab professionals take way too much credit for their work. Someone comes in with a particular injury, again, let's say in this example, it's back pain. They're like, yeah, no worries, mate. Just do these banded clamshells, that'll make you all better. They heal according to the natural history time frame. And then the rehab professional's like, yep, see, clamshells, they work. And this is why it's so important to understand the natural history of back pain, because you realize between 2 to 6 weeks, most people's backs have returned completely to normal. Even a lot of disc injuries tend to heal up in a period of 12 weeks or so. One of the more gnarly and unfortunate natural histories in regards to back pain is sciatica. I believe the natural history for back pain on average is up to 18 months, which that's a long time to be dealing with that sort of pain, and that's really tough if you are dealing with that. Even though thinking about like, oh God, am I going to be suffering from this for 18 months, that can put you in a bit of bad mind space. What it is going to do is it's going to help you manage expectations, and I think that helps people who are in pain a lot. You might be 6 months or even a year into dealing with your sciatica, and you might get really down because your banded clamshells or your back strengthening protocol or your nerve flossing protocol isn't really solving the problem. But just knowing that sciatica is something that often does take up to 18 months to resolve itself, that should give you some comfort that you're not necessarily doing anything wrong. Your body isn't behaving differently necessarily to how anyone else's would. It's just quite an unfortunate problem to have, and it takes a really long time to resolve relative to other forms of common back pain. Again, sciatica, pretty specific diagnosis, and I'd honestly prefer to keep this conversation more about what is known as non-specific lower back pain. So you just wake up one day and you got a sore back. Could be from training, could be from bending over to tie up your shoelaces too much. Who knows what you've done. But you can sort of see with all these false positives with people's rehab intervention, like they think it's the clamshells, the stretching, or the back strengthening. The body's this amazing healing machine. They're taking all the credit, building up all this confidence. Because like I said, most of the time the pain resolves itself. And they're like, yeah, man, every time I give out banded clamshells, they just get better. And this brings me to my next point about a lot of rehab gurus in the space, especially with back pain, because it does affect so many people. You just get so many practitioners that lie, and they just say, yep, everyone who comes to me, I'm able to fix them. That might be true if you haven't treated that many people. Another example of that would be people that think isometrics fix everyone's knee pain. It's like they fix a lot of people's knee pain, not everyone's knee pain. But when you have back pain, and especially like when you're really worried about it, which is a completely natural reaction if you don't understand these things, like, oh, I've hurt my back, oh no, like, is my life over? Am I gonna be able to lift? Or am I even gonna be able to like pick my kid up again? Or the disabling aspect of back pain is so real, especially for people who have like very active jobs where they need to do a lot of lifting. So you can see how it's very easy for these overconfident rehab gurus to prey on people like that are desperate for a solution to their pain, willing to pay and try basically any intervention for anyone who's like, yeah, just come see me, I fix everyone, I'm the guru. The reality is both the causes and the solutions to back pain are somewhat unknown, but what is generally accepted among evidence-based rehab professionals is that back pain is multifactorial and it's complex. And whenever we're handling a complex system, we're always operating under a degree of uncertainty, which is the last thing that people who are in pain or injured want to hear. Like, all they're looking for is some degree of certainty in this complex situation. And then you get a lot of rehab professionals and coaches who don't want to embrace any degree of uncertainty because they're so attached to being this all-knowing guru who can just fix everyone's problems. And they'll misinterpret this like, we don't know the real causes of back pain, we don't necessarily know what the solution is, and they'll interpret that as like nihilism. They're like, oh, so you're just saying just do whatever, or nothing matters, you've just got to deal with it and let natural history take the reins. That's not what people are saying at all when they say that back pain is complex and it's multifactorial and we don't know what your solution is going to be. If anything, it should promote optimism and just an overall personalization of the process. It means that there's any multitude and likely a whole bunch of interventions done simultaneously that are ultimately going to lead to fixing your back pain, or even just the optimism of knowing that your body's got you. It's gonna heal itself at some point. So very, very important distinction. I'm uncertain about this situation, therefore we just do anything, nothing really matters. It's like, no, it means we can put the individual front and center. Okay, we're not treating back pain, we're not treating a specific muscle, we're treating a human being. And it allows us to create these bespoke interventions or protocols that meet the individual where they are at and help them try and gradually re-engage with the activities that are meaningful to them that the back pain is currently preventing them from engaging in. Because there's all these quality of life factors associated with the disability that's associated with back pain. You know, it can really mess up your life for periods. So now that we've got all that out of the way, going back to the, you shouldn't stretch your back, you got to strengthen it. It's basically the same thing, because weight training and strength training is basically just loaded stretching through a certain range of motion anyway. Or another way of looking at it is like stretching is just low load isometric strength training. So the idea that your back can't handle low load isometric strength training, but for some reason it's going to handle a back extension or light deadlifts or whatever your strength training protocol is. I'm not trying to demonize any of those things. I think both of them are potentially great parts of a back rehab protocol. It's just being willing to die on a hill that either of those things is the specific solution to anyone's back pain is a completely stupid position to take. It's making it more about you as the guru than it is the actual patient and how things are affecting them. Especially because one of the things that's most important in any sort of rehab plan is the belief in the plan. And honestly, I'll admit this is an advantage that the gurus have. They're really good at inspiring belief in the protocol, which helps people actually stick to the protocol and engage with it. And I think there's like some, you know, psychological benefits to that as well, a lot of like the placebo effect. And this is maybe where some of the people who engage with the idea that back pain is complex, multifactorial, and there's no one solution to everyone's back pain, some of them don't do a good enough job of reassuring their client, be like, no, you will be fine. And I would say that even if you're not willing to ride or die with one particular protocol, where you can empower people with that certainty as someone who also embraces complexity is by explaining natural history to them. Be like, nah, you should have confidence in your body. It's this amazing healing machine. You know, there's certain things we're going to try to get you back to where you want to be a little bit quicker, but even failing that, don't worry, your body's got this. Anyway, if you're a coach or a rehab professional and you're sort of entertained or intrigued by this idea of complexity and how you could apply it to your training model or your rehab model, I highly recommend you check out my course GPP Level 1 down below. It's a really big focus in the curriculum there, because whether you work in rehab or performance, complexity and multifactorialism is definitely a big underpinning principle in your model, or at least it should be. It can be a lot for people to digest because it's quite different to a lot of the rhetoric we're typically exposed to in this industry, but that's why I'm so passionate about educating coaches and practitioners on the topic itself. Anyway, there's a link for that down below. Anyway, just to summarize this video before we hop off, back pain is not the end of the world. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're training wrong, or that you've been training stupid, or that you're a bad person, or that you're doomed. Your body's this incredible healing machine. The natural history for a lot of back pain incidents can be anywhere between like 2 to 6 weeks. Obviously, it sucks if it takes 6 weeks to get better, but just knowing that and being able to manage your expectations is important. Again, there are other forms of back pain. If you consider sciatica a form of back pain, even though it's gonna refer up and down your whole leg, that has a much longer natural history. I'm really sorry if you're dealing with that. I'm sorry if you're dealing with any sort of chronic pain or injury that's scaring you. Again, it can be a really gnarly experience, and I hope you've got someone to guide you through that process. And that sort of leads me to another point just about back pain before we go. You don't necessarily need to go to a physio or a rehab specialist anytime you hurt your back a little bit. If you feel like you're a well-informed individual, you can just like take it easy for a couple of weeks and just let the magical healing process take place. Like, you know, try to sleep well, try to eat well, try to manage stress, and try to adjust your training loads to meet yourself where you're currently at. But yeah, if you don't have any red flags, it's totally cool to, I think, rehab a lot of things on your own. Not medical advice, not a rehab professional. What I do want to say, it's really important to say that if you are presenting with any red flags, it is very important that you urgently seek out a professional's opinion, or even maybe go to hospital. And what these red flags are is numbness of various parts of your body or tingling sensations. Anytime there's a lot of pain referral away from the initial site of pain or injury, so again, radiating down your whole leg or even going up the chain, these are red flags and you should seek medical attention. If you have lost bowel control or bladder control, there might be a couple of other red flags that I'm missing, but just off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure those are the main ones. But yeah, back pain, the solution, it's highly individual. The solution might actually be just like ignoring it a lot of the time, or like I said, depends a lot on your personality. And again, that's just why it's important. You know, coaching, rehab, these are all things that are heavily individualized and should be about the person, not the practitioner. Stop trying to be a guru, whether you're a rehab professional or whether you're a coach. You're a servant. You're someone who's there to help someone understand the constraints of good enough while they sort of choose their own adventure. I really like embracing, I guess, the hero's journey when it comes. I don't really do rehab, but you know, in the coaching process and coaching, rehab, you know, sort of end up being the same thing the more we go down the rabbit hole. This is why I learned about all this stuff, ultimately just trying to be the best coach that I could. I realized a lot of the best thinkers and a lot of the best frameworks were sort of emerging more from the rehab than the performance side of things. So what I do for performance coaches a lot of the time is I end up educating them on these frameworks so that they can become better coaches and they can do a better job of increasing their clients or their athletes' performance levels. If you're interested in learning about our systems for that, check out GPP Level 1 down below. I hope you enjoyed the video. YouTube is probably recommending 2 of my other videos. If you just want to go and binge some of my content, helps me a ton. Get that total watch time up. Please subscribe if you want to see more of my videos, and there should be another video coming out in a couple of days. Thank you for listening. I hope you got something out of it.